Handicapper Steve here, handicapping the racing from Hawthorne Racecourse here on Sunday. It is the 25th of June, 2023. Gonna look at the fifth race from Hawthorne, but before I get on to that, remember to please follow me on Twitter at Horse Racing Kid 5 for more selections for race courses around the world, and I mean around the world. Let's look at the fifth race from Hawthorne, which is the featured Hawthorne Derby. It's black type stakes going for a purse $100,000, race for 3-year-olds here. Field of 6 horses going to the turf course, the distance of ground of 1,800 meters, or a mile and 1/8 on the Hawthorne turf course. 1,800 meters, a mile 1/8 here, and I show the diagram. Just gives me a second to look down my notes. Just bear with me. Finally fixed my printer after like 10 years. Like, finally, I'm not gonna use, I have the iPad. That's my main source of looking at the races. But I always use these, these notepads for notes. But occasionally for the big days, I'm gonna start printing out the PPs again. But I try not to I really try not to because. It's such a waste of paper. With that being said, my top selection, I'm going to go with the one horse Really Good. 1563 for me in the superfecta. 1563 Super, top selection to one horse, Really Good. 3-year-old called by Hard Spun. Mike Maker trains. Chris Emmett gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came the 14th of May at Churchill. Mile and 1/8 off the turf in a allowance race, 127,000. More than this race today, by the way. And the horse finished 5th by 11 1/4 lengths that day, and he just kind of stalked and kind of hit the wall. He ran okay for his first dirt outing. There we go. But he's a turf horse. He's come back to the green stuff today. Could be forwardly paced. He's run much the best Beyer speed figures here. I think he could get the trip to win. 2 back in a lounge race for 109,000 at Keeneland, a mile and 1/8, 15th of April. He finished 8th by 7.5 lengths that day. He was just very wide and just a little lackadaisical that day. Probably need the race. It was his first race in Spurs Cup Juvenile Turf at Keeneland, and I totally forgot up until watching this replay that last year's Brewers Cup was at Keeneland. Feels like a century ago. But 1 mile there in November, he finished 12th by 6.5 lengths that day. He beat two horses home. He just never really, was going to beat those horses there. And then the Bourbon at Keeneland over the mile 16th on the lawn. He finished 3rd by 3 1/4 lengths that day. He was very wide, but he was staying the trip well. Nothing bad about that run. And then he had a decent 3rd in Kentucky Downs Juvenile Stakes over the 7 furlongs, or over the mile at Kentucky Downs. His only lone career victor came at Saratoga, mile 16th on the inner in a main special weight. Went by 1 1/4 lengths, closing up from nowhere, stupidly wide, but he got the job done. Coming here, training well at the Churchill Downs Training Center. I think he's a very likely winner. I think the 5 horse here, Act a Fool, for Daniel Centennial, or get Centennial up the saddle, not Daniel Centennial, but Larry Ravelli trains this one through a call by Oscar Performance, and I think this horse is bred to go on turf through and through. Most recently, but he's stepping on turf for the first time. He stepped on Tapito once in his debut, where he just ran horribly that day, where he just wasn't comfortable from wide posture. But since coming to Hawthorne, he's really been on the improve. One here on the 3rd of March, going a mile 70 quite nicely, winning by 6 1/4 lengths. One after that, 9th of April, going a mile 70 and optional 50, and one by 5 with an 84 Beyer going a mile 70 earlier this month. Comes to the green stuff for the first time. He's bred for it through and through. It wouldn't surprise me if he steals it on the front end. I'll use him in the pick 4 that begins with this race. Keep in mind, very low takeout here of 12% for the win play show. So, the old-fashioned across-the-board wager, it's good that they lowered the takeout for that one. But to recap my selection for the 5th from Hawthorne, it's the Hawthorne Derby. Gonna take the one horse Really Good. Give kudos to the 5 horse Act of a Fool. 1563 Super. 1-5 in your multi-race. So good luck to all. Please follow me on Twitter at Horse Racing Kid 5. Good luck, everybody.